Today I'm going to talk to you about the 3 countries that I've gotten stuck in. Three countries I've gotten stuck in and couldn't return back home to where I was living. So even though I'm going in chronological order, I'm going to count down because it's more dramatic. So the 3rd country to start would be Iceland. 2001. I'm going to date myself here. People always think I'm younger. It's nice, but it's also kind of weird when someone's half your age and they think that you're the same age. So I was 19. So this was the first time I was going abroad outside of my home continent of North America, growing up in Ohio near the Canadian border. So Canada was like the farthest away I'd ever been. So I was interested in living in Iceland and decided probably I should visit first. And that's kind of interesting that I ended up getting stuck there, at least for a short time. I visited Reykjavik. It was in September of 2001 and ended up getting stuck there basically because of 9/11. They weren't letting any flights go back into the US at that time. I remember sitting in the hostel where I was staying and they came to, like, the staff came out. They handed us these little pieces of paper with like some kind of biblical quote or something, like it was like a prophecy, like they knew that was going to happen. It was weird, and weird to me that they were so concerned with things happening in the United States. Like I didn't know that was normal for the rest of the world to be so focused on the US when Americans are dumb and we don't know anything about the rest of the world. Well, I do now a little bit because I've traveled, and hopefully you all Americans are traveling out there, and that's why you're watching this. I'm just going to stop talking about Americans. It's weird to say that was a bad experience for me because it's like, it was 9/11, like I didn't really suffer from it. I ended up staying like a few more days in a country that I was already interested in visiting. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to say that was great, because it's like, okay, great that tragedy happened and that I got to spend more time there. But the point is, I had basically saved and used the amount of money like exactly to the day that I needed to stay there. And like, you know, when you're young and you maybe haven't really traveled before and you're used to like your own little part of the world, things working out there, and you don't necessarily think of, and even now I wouldn't be able to think of like all the things that would go wrong, you know, traveling. And so I guess the lesson there was just like, bring more money, make sure you have extra money and more than you need, especially because even while you're traveling, like you don't know really what there's always like things that come up and like places where you just end up having to spend money. So, but I ended up made a friend through this like Icelandic dating site, because I used to do stuff like that, and there were these chat rooms, and this wasn't someone I was dating, but it was just a friend. But I ended up meeting him, and it wasn't until the day we were like basically told like, you can't fly back, you have to stay here just indefinitely. But basically I met up with this guy and his friends, and they made me this sign. They had asked like, what is she like, because we're looking for this person we've never seen before. And he was like, she's goth. I would think I was more of a metalhead. But they made this sign that said, we are looking for an American gothic girl trapped in Iceland. For further information, talk to us. And they have a lot of little details on there. It says mind control at the top here. I don't really know why, but I love this. And these guys were so, obviously from the sign, were so fun to hang out with. And they were like, see that pub across the street? They know about you. And they were just like, it was very dramatic. And they signed the back as well. I gotta take a break and hydrate. I'm in a desert right now. I'm in Las Vegas. Hopefully I won't get stuck here. So the number 2 country that I got stuck in is Cameroon. Maybe a little more interesting to those of you who haven't been to that part of the world or don't even know where it is. So Cameroon is in sub-Saharan Africa on the west coast. I was in Cameroon doing women's rights work. I was working for a feminist NGO there. So I was there for around 2.5 months. I'm going to talk about this in another video, but that was definitely a very mentally and physically just draining experience. That it was experience that affected me mentally, physically. You know, it was the most different place that I've been even since then. I was in Northwest Territory, which is English speaking, but I went through the French speaking part, the southern part of the country, and came in through Douala, and I had to fly out of Douala as well. And God, the city, I just remember like you would ride through in a taxi, and at the end of it, like I had black stuff coming out of my nose. It's like gross, but like there was so much pollution there that you would like, that was from just a few hours of the city. And I'd heard like a friend of a friend got robbed at knife point at 11 a.m. So the whole experience of being there was very different for me. Watch out for the scams at the airport, by the way. I was there over the summer, and as I was coming back, I had to be at the airport around 3 a.m. And I got there, and there was this guy like shouting at the staff member there. Nowadays we would call that a Karen, but we didn't have Karens back, or maybe, I don't know. But this was in 2009. And yeah, this guy was like yelling, like in French, he was saying like, I came here with my 3 wives and it's 3 a.m. and like, you could have called me, you had my number, like, and I'm thinking this isn't gonna be good, like what's going on? And then basically they just overbooked the flight. And I don't know, I know that happens in the West too, but I've seen where they offer you a free ticket. I did that once. Don't ever do that. It's not worth it to get the free ticket and sit in the airport for hours on end and just it was awful. I did it during the holidays too, and I was just like lying on the floor being like, why did I do this? But in this case, they were just like, okay, we'll just send you to a hotel, and you like indefinitely, like we didn't really have a sense of when we were gonna leave and be able to go home. So it was weird. Like I was really eager to leave. Like I hadn't had the best experience there, and I was like really like happy. I was like at the airport, I was about to go back, and no. So I went to the hotel, and I was just kind of there. I don't know if I slept or not, but it was within the same day, and we ended up getting to go back. So I was trapped there for, you know, like less than a day, really. Like maybe 6 hours, I don't know, whatever it was, shortest time. But it was also like, it affected me more to be stuck there and somewhere that I was just like very eager to leave, and had just a lot of culture shock and things, and didn't even really know that was something that could happen. I don't know, or just, yeah. So they called me, I was at the hotel, and they called me, and they were like, you're gonna go right now. Like, they were like, we have a flight, okay, you're leaving right now. And I was like, okay, fine. Also, I do have something to show you from Cameroon. We used to listen to music on these, but I recorded, basically I was like doing interviews. I lost a lot of it because I ended up losing my suitcase as well, which was dumb. I actually lost it because I left it in a lobby in Paris. But there's some Cameroonian radio that I listened to, and I don't know, it was interesting because they don't let real journalism happen there. It was weird watching like the news, and they would be like, there'd be 2 guys like talking, they're like, yeah, isn't the president great? They'd be like, yeah, the president's great. And it was like so different from what we're used to seeing. Like anyway, so maybe I'll play a little of that if I find my cassette player, for all of you Zoomers who don't even know what like this even is. It's a tape. It's a cassette tape. You put, because it's got tape in the tape.
I-22, 2009. Good afternoon, and see you tomorrow.
Okay, so the number 1 country I was stuck in was the United States. That might not sound like it makes any sense since I'm American, but I was actually living in Mexico at the time, and also kind of in a kind of sketchy way because, okay, this is totally unfair, like how easy it is for us to go there as opposed to how hard it is for Mexicans to come to the US. Like, that's dumb. But we were, like some of the nomads there, like that we knew, taking advantage of the fact that you can stay for 6 months legally, and then some people, like, they would just leave and like come back, like just go on a trip. And they said depending on who you get at immigration in the airport, they may or may not care, like let you in. So I was already really afraid that I wouldn't get back in. Fortunately, like we had given up the apartment we were in, so we had our stuff in storage there, and we were planning to go right back. But I was in Montana visiting family. My partner was in Pennsylvania visiting his family, and basically it's when the pandemic happened, quarantine. So it was in mid-March of 2020. Like, it was supposed to be a 3-week, quarantine situation. Well, actually, I had an Uber driver who suggested this. He was like, if it were me, like, I would just go out somewhere in nature and just bring a bunch of supplies. Or I don't know if he was a doomsday prepper, but he seemed like a cool guy. And he was like, go out somewhere and just like stay and chill out in the wilderness for that quarantine period. So I was like, okay. And then 3 weeks turned into, I think, 9 months. We were in rural New York, but in a small town called Ellicottville in Western New York. It's like an hour south of Buffalo. But the abbreviation for it is literally EVIL. EVL. Evil. And if you live here, you're an evil woman. And it was like really deserted. There's a population of 300 people, but a lot of tourism normally, but without tourism, it was like a ghost town. And it was creepy, but it was also just like so lovely and like peaceful and all of that. But yeah, we were just like waiting to like, when can we go back to Mexico? Like, that's where we live now. We're gonna go back there, like assuming they let us in. And we kept waiting. And then after a couple months, we realized that it was only the land border that was closed. You couldn't drive, but you could technically fly. But they'd also canceled a lot of flights, so it wasn't really clear. So we may have gotten back in if we had tried. And I was also supposed to go to Canada, like from Montana. I had a flight to Canada. It didn't seem like I was gonna be able to go to Canada either. So, and I was supposed to fly like from Canada to Mexico. So it was just like, I don't know, it was a complicated trip, but it was a trip. Basically, we only left because we had reached that legal limit of living in Mexico for those 6 months. Ellicottville, I don't know, we made a short horror film there, which I still haven't released. That was the beginning of like my filmmaking, learning.
Your face.
You know, I can't complain too much, but it was hard to be like, wait, now we're stuck back here. I always wanted to travel and live abroad and like have these experiences, and like I was living abroad like indefinitely, not just like when I was younger and I would go to, an exchange program or something like that and come back. Like, it was, I thought I had like made it in terms of like getting out of the US, which like there's a lot worse places than the US, but like at the same time, there's a whole world out there. So it just really sucked to like feel like we were just back to, like we hadn't achieved that goal. It felt like almost like a failure in a way. So one of the really cool things that I discovered at Ellicottville is this bird that I would hear, and I was up pretty late and I would hear it like probably around 4 a.m. sometimes, maybe like, and 4 p.m. I think it would sing. And I learned it's called a black-capped chickadee because it has a little like, it looks like it's wearing a little hat. It's really cute, and just the sound of that was very like comforting in that time, because it was always something that was always the same, like twice a day. But they live in these northerly areas where it's cold, and I like warm areas now. But my partner was really sweet, and he got me a little version of the bird, and it actually does the bird call. I love this thing so much. I actually thought about getting a tattoo of this just because it's like such, I don't know, the bird and everything. It's like a symbolic like of that time in my life. So yeah, so stuck in the US for 9 months, stuck in Cameroon for a few hours, and I was stuck in Iceland for, a few days. So these are things that can happen. I didn't used to know that it was possible to like be stuck somewhere and told like by the government like you can no longer travel where you yourself live. I guess just like plan for the fact that you can't plan, if that makes any sense, which I think that it did.
If that makes any sense, which I think that it did.
Anyways, thank you for watching this. This is like the beginning of our channel. So please, if you like travel and nomading and the idea of traveling more slowly, spending more time in a place, even like I want to talk about this more like being an HSP or a highly sensitive person, like traveling and not necessarily wanting or being able maybe to do all the things and like just having the experience of living in a place. Like that's what I've always liked to do, is like actually just being in a place and not just the tourism and the activities. But I want to do some of that as well, so we're gonna get into that too. So yeah, please like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff, and I'll see you in the next video. This is the intro part of the video where I start talking, and hopefully I'm not going to use this part because it's just going to be to get used to talking and all that stuff.